This is the mysterious case of Claire Harlow, a young librarian from the quiet town of Maple Hollow, who vanished one ordinary night, leaving behind her locked car, her purse, and a single library card on the pavement. What happened next would confuse detectives, shock the town, and challenge everything we think we know about time itself. But before we dive deep into this unbelievable true crime mystery, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and stay active, because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Your support helps bring more hidden cases like this to light. Now, let's begin the story of Claire Harlow, the woman who disappeared without a trace and returned a year later without aging a single day. On a quiet autumn evening in 1998, the small town of Maple Hollow seemed wrapped in its usual calm. The trees that lined Main Street glowed a deep orange, and the air carried the faint scent of rain and old wood. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the rhythm of life rarely changed. That night, Claire Harlow, a 27-year-old librarian, was closing up the Maple Hollow Public Library just as she always did. She carefully stacked the last of the returned books, turned off the reading lamps, and locked the front doors at exactly 8 p.m. Her routine was steady, predictable, and comforting to those who knew her. A neighbor later recalled seeing her walk across the quiet street toward her small blue car parked under a flickering streetlight. She was holding her purse, a canvas tote filled with borrowed novels, and her car keys glinted as she reached for the door. Everything about that moment appeared ordinary. But within the next few minutes, the ordinary turned into something no one could explain. When the morning came, the car was still there. The doors were locked, the keys were missing, and Claire's purse sat neatly on the passenger seat, untouched. The only unusual thing was a single library card lying face down on the pavement beside the car. It bore Claire's own name. There were no signs of struggle, no broken glass, and no footprints leading away from the vehicle. It was as if she had simply dissolved into the night air. By dawn, the first whispers began. Someone must have taken her, or maybe she'd run off. But those who knew Claire couldn't believe it. In Maple Hollow, people vanished only in stories. Until that night. Detectives arrived before sunrise, determined to find any trace of what had happened to Claire Harlow. The streets were cordoned off, the area photographed, and every inch of pavement examined for clues. Yet, nothing made sense. Her car remained untouched, her belongings were in perfect order, and there was no evidence of foul play. It was as if she had stepped out of her life and disappeared into thin air. The police questioned everyone who might have seen her that night, the neighbor who waved to her, the teenager closing the grocery store across the street, even a delivery driver who passed by minutes later. None had seen anything unusual. Search teams scoured the nearby woods and fields, dragging the shallow rivers and combing through abandoned cabins. Hundreds of volunteers joined in, carrying flashlights and calling her name long into the night. But as the days passed, the hope that she had simply wandered off began to fade. No footprints, no torn fabric, no discarded items, just silence. Investigators turned to the town's limited security cameras. There were only 3 along Claire's route home. One showed her locking the library door, another captured her crossing the street near the old clock tower, but the third, positioned just 50 meters away, never recorded her passing. Between one frame and the next, she was gone. Weeks became months, and the investigation grew desperate. Theories spread quickly through Maple Hollow. An abduction, a secret lover, even strange stories about the clock tower's shadow swallowing people whole. None of it could be proven. With no body, no suspect, and no answers, the case was eventually closed. Claire Harlow's disappearance became the town's darkest mystery, one that refused to fade from memory. 1 year to the day after Claire Harlow disappeared, Maple Hollow awoke to another strange morning. The town was quiet, gray clouds hung low, and a soft mist clung to the streets. At 7:12 a.m., a call came into the police station. A jogger had spotted a woman standing barefoot near the old bridge at the edge of town. She was pale, dazed, and wearing clothes that looked strangely outdated. When officers arrived, their disbelief was immediate. It was Claire. She looked exactly as she had the night she vanished. Her hair was the same length, her clothes were the same neat outfit she'd worn leaving the library, and even the tiny ink stain on her sleeve was still visible. There were no scratches, no bruises, no signs of a struggle. What unsettled the officers most was her condition. She appeared healthy, her pulse steady, her temperature normal, and her shoes, though she held them in her hand, were spotless, as if she hadn't walked a step. When questioned, she seemed confused. Her last clear memory was locking the library doors. She had no recollection of where she'd been or what had happened in the missing year. To her, only minutes had passed. Doctors examined her thoroughly, finding no trauma, no drug traces, and no signs of malnutrition or exposure. The town was stunned. For a year, Claire had been a ghost, a name whispered at candlelight vigils. Now she was back, unchanged, unaged, and unable to explain her absence. Detectives reopened the case immediately, yet every answer led only to deeper questions. It wasn't just a disappearance anymore. It was something beyond understanding. With Claire's return, the investigation reignited like a fire that had never truly gone out. Detectives revisited every lead, searching for something they might have missed the first time. They re-examined her car, her library, and the street where she vanished. Yet, nothing had changed. No new prints, no fibers, no physical evidence of any kind. The only difference now was Claire herself, standing before them, alive but trapped in a fog of confusion. She could not explain the lost year, and doctors confirmed her body showed no sign of time having passed. Her hair growth, nail length, and even her skin's condition were identical to the day she went missing. It was impossible, and yet undeniable. Investigators began to look beyond the surface. The clock tower, which had become the center of rumor, was once again searched from top to bottom. It was an aging structure, built over a century earlier, its gears rusted and its foundation cracked. Yet deep beneath it, officers discovered something previously overlooked, a narrow passage leading toward the old library basement. Inside, behind a wall of crumbling stone, they found a locked door sealed with rust. When the lock was forced open, the air that escaped was stale, untouched for decades. The small room inside was empty except for a broken pocket watch lying in a circle of clean dust. The watch's hands were frozen at 8:06 p.m., the exact time Claire had last been seen. Along the walls were faint, carved markings, nearly erased by time. Experts could not decipher them, though some resembled old astronomical symbols. The discovery deepened the mystery. The room seemed ancient, untouched, yet somehow connected to Claire's impossible disappearance. As the investigation pushed further into the town's forgotten history, new and unsettling connections began to surface. Old town records, stored deep in the municipal archives, revealed that Claire's disappearance was not the first of its kind. In 1923, a young teacher named Alice Morton vanished while walking home from the same street near the clock tower. Decades later, in 1961, a mail carrier named Robert Ames went missing in broad daylight within a few meters of the same location. Neither case was ever solved, and both shared eerie similarities. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, and both occurring in early October. The parallels were undeniable. A local historian joined the investigation, digging through maps and property records dating back to the 1800s. He discovered that before the library and clock tower were built, the land had belonged to a secretive organization known as the Hollow Society. Very little was known about them, except that their meetings took place in a stone hall that once stood where the clock tower now rose. Rumors at the time spoke of experiments involving light, reflection, and the bending of moments. Most dismissed it as superstition. Curious, the detectives brought in technical experts to test the area for unusual energy readings. The results were baffling. Strong electromagnetic fluctuations centered directly beneath the clock tower. During one test, all equipment abruptly shut down for exactly 12 seconds. When power returned, the timestamp on the recording repeated the same minute twice. Security footage taken during that period showed nothing out of place, but investigators noticed something chilling. For one frame, the image blurred, as if the world itself had briefly stuttered, caught between seconds that should never have existed. Years passed, but the mystery of Claire Harlow continued to haunt Maple Hollow. The library was renovated in 2005, its walls stripped and floors replaced, but the basement remained sealed under orders from the local authorities. During the renovation, a construction worker made an unexpected discovery. A small metal container hidden deep within one of the interior walls, wrapped in layers of cloth, so old it crumbled to dust at the touch. Inside was a single film reel, unmarked and fragile. It was sent for restoration, and what it revealed would shake the town to its core. The footage, silent and grainy, showed a group of men and women standing in a circle in what appeared to be the old stone hall that once occupied the site. Their clothing suggested the early 1900s, and they held candles that flickered against the rough walls. At the center of the circle, faint chalk markings covered the floor, identical to those discovered in the library basement decades later. The reel played for several minutes before freezing on one chilling frame. There, standing among the crowd, was a woman unmistakably resembling Claire Harlow. The resemblance was perfect, the same eyes, the same face, even the same clothes she wore the night she vanished. Experts examined the film and confirmed its authenticity. It was created long before Claire was born. There was no evidence of editing or trickery. The discovery reignited public fascination, but no new answers emerged. Claire lived quietly until her passing years later, never remembering the missing year. Yet, every night, the clock tower still paused at exactly 8:06 p.m., as though Maple Hollow itself refused to let the moment go.